Imagine being engaged to someone you've been with for years, but the entire time, your heart keeps pulling you towards somebody else. Not a stranger, not a fling, but your coworker. The person who knows your coffee order, makes you laugh at 2 p.m., and suddenly makes you wonder if you're about to marry the wrong person. That was me. And this is the messy, honest story of how it all fell apart. To keep a person anonymous, I have given her the fake name Blerpo. So the unconventional version of this story is sweet and whimsical like The Office, while the more cynical version of leaving your girlfriend for another woman is something the bad guy does at the beginning of the movie. What I am saying is that I struggle hard with trying not to see myself as Hugh Grant for Bridget Jones' Diary. I met Blerpo 3 years ago when she started working in the same office as me. We didn't immediately become friends and were barely acquaintances. Our departments were as far away from each other as possible and really only spoke to each other at work events. Both of us were in long-term, committed relationships and ran in our own circles within the company. Cut to 2 years later, and I'm deciding whether or not to get engaged. I struggled with this for a long time because I had so much anxiety about it, but kept telling myself that it's normal and I have to get over it, that I would keep telling myself that my current girlfriend is great and that she deserved it. You know, like a medal or a perfect attendance award. I held on to the ring for almost a year, and I kept putting off proposing for whatever reason was an excuse for being really scared and unsure. Good sign. At this point in time, Blerpo and I have become really good friends. Because so many people have been moved around, we ended up working on a lot of projects together and actually share an office. The only advice I remember Blerpo telling me was to only do it if I wanted it and not for anyone else. Considering not doing it felt selfish and mean. After I got engaged, I remember feeling this deep feeling of regret. Now, that is a hard feeling to express without someone immediately punching you right in the mouth. Try it. My now fiance and I had completely opposite schedules and would really only see her on Sundays. And even then we just sleep in, make dinner, watch TV, and look at our phones until we got tired and went to bed. I think this schedule made not showing my anxiety to her somewhat easy. And any night I could stay at my apartment alone was heaven to me. It was so where I would go to work and not talk about it. It took almost 3 weeks before I announced my engagement to anyone. Of course, everyone was excited and happy for me when I finally told them, because that's what you do. Meanwhile, I would go back to my office and hate myself for feeling like maybe I made a mistake. I was really good at hiding it. If anyone asked me about it, I was quick to throw a joke or anything to avert attention from the fact that I did not want to talk about it. The only person called me on it was Blerpo. And all she said was only do it if I wanted it and not for anyone else. Blerpo and I started this weird thing that we weren't talking about where we would do nice things for each other. The excuses thing kicked in hard here. Our job was stressful, and after a lot of our friends had left for other jobs and new people came on, I figured our friendship was somewhat natural. It became normal for me to come to work and to be my coffee waiting for me on my desk. Sometimes I would buy her a muffin on my way in. We even went on a work trip together that consisted of us getting dinner and walking around the city talking. On that trip, she got really sick and I had to buy her medicine, take her temperature, and keep tabs on her. An excuse I would always tell myself was that we were both in long-term relationships, and we both respected that, so any niceness we showed each other was completely platonic. And it was kind of, but I was aware something was happening, but I wouldn't even let myself think about it, even as innocent as it was. Oftentimes I want to Google work wife, but wouldn't, thinking that if I stopped and actually considered it, then it would be real. I also never really thought it was really two-sided. I knew we got along well, and I knew we were good friends, and I knew I started having confusing feelings, but I never really thought it was mutual. But in actuality, I think I was in such deep denial. What made it complicated was I had doubts about my relationship before getting to this point, but had no real reason to not go through with it other than my gut telling me otherwise. The saying is go with your gut. Not talk to your gut at length and make excuses. Your gut is nice and will understand. So now we're at the part where everything explodes. Blerpo got offered another job and was about to put in her 2 weeks. When she told me, I told her I was happy for her, but secretly, I felt like dying. Aside from the weird feelings, Blerpo was the only stress-free part of my day. After a work event, some coworkers, Blerpo, and myself stayed afterwards and had drinks. Drinks quickly turned into dancing. I would like to think the Faiths were drunk too and threw some bad slow songs on the Pandora account. There was a point in the night where Blerpo and I, who never even held hands, were now quietly holding each other slow dancing to the song These Arms of Mine from Dirty Dancing. It was the lamest, saddest thing to ever happen on an episode of Glee. We were the only people in the room that knew she was about to leave, and we were both secretly heartbroken about it, but could not say it. I felt like I'd been trying so hard not to have feelings for her, not unlike holding in a fart. In this moment, I was pretty sure I couldn't hold in how I felt, and that there might also be shit in that fart. It was becoming obvious. That is what I'm trying to say. You get the analogy. Keep reading, it's gonna get crazier. It was getting late, and we had to start heading home. Her and I were alone for a minute, and we're putting on our coats when Blerpo looks at me and says it. She says, I wish you weren't engaged, to where I say it too. I say what she again says, I wish you weren't engaged, to where I say it too. I say what she again says, I wish you weren't engaged. She immediately started crying and apologizing. I held her, and I walked her to the train. I told her we were drunk, and we would talk about it tomorrow. From this moment on, until the day she leaves, we would have these long, hard conversations where she pours her heart out, I listen, and I say all the things I think someone in my position is supposed to say. I told her how much I cared about her, that I knew why she felt the way she did, but I was engaged and I just couldn't feel what she felt. Or something like that. Then we'd both cry and hold each other for what seemed like hours. It was because maybe we both knew I wasn't being honest. And I hated how hard it was to say no to her. I kept thinking that I could not feel this way. I've been tempted by other women before and had no problem saying no to them. This was different. Also, it was coupled with my own doubts about my relationship. While at the time I knew I wasn't going to say yes, I kept thinking about what would happen if I did. I wasn't letting Blerpo know how in the middle and undecided I was, but I'm sure she knew. I felt like I was at a fork in the road, but the signs were in another language, and I wasn't wearing my glasses. I don't wear glasses. I kept thinking what 10 years down the line would look like on both these paths. It's hard to describe what I was feeling. It's like I'm trying to get across the Grand Canyon, and there are two ways. One is a bridge that goes all the way across. It's not super sturdy, but it looks like I can make it, and it was the way described on the map. The other way is a ramp, and near the ramp is a motorcycle, and the motorcycle has flames painted on it, and next to that is an Evel Knievel suit. While all this was happening, I was frantically asking for advice from everyone I could. I talked to old friends, Reddit, anywhere I could online. Answers were all over the place, ranging from stay, to leave, to maybe being alone altogether. It inevitably got to a point where Blerpo and I decided to stop talking altogether, at least for a while. This time where we did not talk was way harder than I wanted it to be. My doubts in my relationship have about quadrupled. Every day, I would have a moment that would be a panic attack. A random song would come on that would remind me of her, and my eyes would well up with tears, and I'd stand in the bathroom alone. I assumed I'd never talk to Blerpo again, and had to take a good long look at whether or not I wanted to stay in my relationship. All I kept feeling was I wasn't ready, but couldn't say it out loud. How I was feeling was no longer something I could hide. It was obvious to my girlfriend, and we tried to talk about it, but I just could not convince myself of anything other than wanting to be alone. Through the next couple of weeks, she would tell me that she's starting to get fed up, and if I wanted to end it, then I need to say something. That I even reached out to a counselor who I'd speak with online all the time, and once a week over the phone. My anxiety was keeping me up at night, and even grew completely cliche ugly beard. I was aware I was living the version of my life where I said no to Blerpo, and the what-ifs about what would have happened haunted me constantly. But does that mean I needed to go, though, with everything else? Now I'm in a sub-fork in the road. The final bit of advice I received was from an older friend who is very sweet, very calm, and very mild-mannered. She was with her boyfriend for 8 years, and when they started planning their future together, she panicked and decided to end it. Now she's happily married to someone and has been for 5 years that I met her somewhere in between and never knew the details. She talked about how terrible and mean and ugly and dumb she felt afterwards, but cut to now, and she is happy and has no regrets. She felt that at the time. Maybe she just wasn't ready. Hearing her say this was a bit relieving because I couldn't shake the thought that no matter what, I'd be a bad person and couldn't live with myself. And she's someone I admire, and knowing that she went through something similar and is overall happier made me feel better, not great. In the end, I just felt that me being and feeling this way just wasn't fair to my girlfriend. I just couldn't go through with getting married feeling how I felt. I kept imagining feeling this way on my wedding day, and my hands would shake. I was worried I'd be thinking about Blerpo. I think even if I did try to go through with it, it would have dissolved in a different way later in time and been much harder. It was too much doubt/confusion. I felt like I was living the life she wanted and probably deserved, but I didn't know if I wanted to be there. It was my fault to not speak up about my feelings, wants, or doubts earlier on. And I take full responsibility for that. The decision to end my relationship was one of the hardest things I had to go through. I wish I could have felt differently, and I tried it out. I could write down a dozen things wrong with our relationship. But in the end, I just wasn't happy moving forward, but felt too guilty for a long time to end it. And if I'm being honest, I want nothing more than for her to be happy, and I don't think she would be with me. Having done everything, I sometimes feel terrible and mean and ugly and dumb, but I don't think I'd be human if I felt otherwise. I'm trying to remember how I felt in the last year or two, where all I could think about was unhappy I was, but I could not bear to say anything as, oh, now it's 7 months since Blerpo first told me how she felt, and we have become an item. It's been 6 months of us being together. We are still taking it one day at a time. It's very sweet and quiet that I'm trying to be calm about the whole thing, and we're trying to figure it all out. Of course, I feel bad about what happened, and ideally I wish I had done something a longer time ago. But I can't change that now, and who knows if it would have worked its way out the same. Having said that, I am open to all versions of the eventual future, even the ones that we are not even anticipating. At first, I would have moments where I would get filled with doubt and get scared, and then I'd see how much spaghetti I would eat. But I can't help but feel that we are sharing something special/totally lame and gross. Spends hours just holding and staring at each other, something I don't remember doing previously. Letting myself be in the moment rather than get through every event. Being more honest with myself and what I want and feel, and not ignore any thought I would deem as bad. I'd rather try and fail than never know what would have been. And as lame as it sounds, I'm letting myself be romantic.